Hey Vanessa, I thought I'd show you what I learned tonight about trying to blur out these name tags that you asked about. So it's a little bit complicated, but if you follow along and you do it a few times, I think you'll get used to it. So here we go. I know you don't have a whole lot of experience with Photoshop, so I'll try to explain everything that I'm doing right here. So first thing I'm going to do is go to layers. If you don't see layers, you can go to window, go down here to layers, click, and it should pop up. All right, so I'm going to go to layers. Right now, it only shows me one photo that I have up right now, and that's the background. What I'm going to do at first is I'm going to duplicate this background. So what I'm going to do is hit, let's see what it is. It's Control J. All right, so what it did, it made another layer. So really what we have here is we actually have two pictures. It's the same exact picture, but it's right on top of each other. So it looks like it's one picture. So I'm going to hit Control Z to go back to where it was. So I actually have two pictures here. The reason I have that is because I'm just going to do something with it. So just watch what we do. So what I'm going to do is take this picture right here and I'm going to blur it so that it blurs the name tags. So if you want, you can zoom up to it. So I'm going to hit Z for zoom, click and drag, and just to get a little closer. If I want to move this around on the screen, I hit the letter H for hand, and then it moves the photo around on the screen. So what I'm going to do is blur the whole entire picture. I do that by going up to filter, then go to blur, and then go to Gaussian blur. So click on that, and it really blurred it. So I can make it not that blurry, and I can make it super blurry. So what we're going to do is, now I know what you're thinking. You don't want the whole entire picture blurry, but we're going to solve that in a minute. So let's take this up. I don't know. I'm just kind of looking to see where you can't read the words. So that's pretty close. I think we're probably fine with that. I don't think there's any way anybody could read anything on that name tag right there. So I just hit OK with this. Now I'm going to hit Control 0 just so I see the whole picture. So obviously you don't want the whole picture blurry. You just want the name tags blurry. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a thing called a layer mask. Down here at the bottom of this, if I hover over it, it says Add Layer Mask. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make what they call an invisibility layer mask. So I do that by hitting the Alt key. Now, I'm using a Windows machine, and you probably are using a Mac. So if I say Control something, and I already did, I said Control J, that's a command on the Mac. And if I hit Alt on the Windows machine, it's really the Option key on your Mac. I'm going to say Control and Alt, but you just have to be able to interpret it to Command and Option. Okay, so I hope that helps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the Alt key and then click on this layer mask. So I hit the Alt, I'm holding it down right now, I click it, and now what it did, it put this little thing right here. And if you look at the picture now it's nice and sharp. You're like, well, what happened to the blur? Well, what we're going to do, this layer mask, I'm going to reveal it, okay? I'm going to reveal the blur. The blur's still there, but you don't see it because this is an invisible mask. So what I'm going to do is reveal, I'm going to take away the invisibility so I see what's behind it. So I'm going to use a brush. It's very simple. You just use the letter B for brush and it turns into this little circle. See that little circle right here? What I'm going to do now is I'm going to zoom back in, Z for zoom, and I'm going to click on this, H for hand just to move it over here so I can mess with it. And now what I'm going to do is hit the letter B. Now that it's a little bit bigger, if I want to make it even larger, the brush size, you could come up here, but I don't like doing that. So what I'm going to do is hit the bracket key, the left and right bracket. After the letter P, on the same line as letter P on the keyboard, to the right are your bracket keys. The left bracket makes it smaller, like that. The right bracket makes it bigger, like that. So now watch what happens. This is really cool. Now what you got to make sure is down here, you'll see in a black and white little square. As long as the white square is on top, this will work. Don't have the black square. If you need to reverse it, see those little double arrow things right there? You can click it, watch what happens. Now it puts the black on top and the white on the bottom. But nothing's going to happen. If we put the black on top and I click and drag, nothing's going to happen. So what I'm going to do is click on this so the white is on the top. Another way that you could move them instead of going over here and clicking is using the letter X, as you can see at the end of that. So the keyboard shortcut is an X. if you want to switch them back and forth. See, all I'm doing is hitting X back and forth, but I want the white on top. Watch what happens when I click now. Check it out. Now, everything that was blurry behind that invisibility mask is now showing up as a blur. So I just click and I drag this little brush tool. It's just a circle, and you can make it smaller if you want. You can hit the left bracket key to make it a little bit smaller, and what it does, it just blurs what's there. If you want to, if you don't like just the names blurred, you might like that, and that's perfectly fine. You can just do that, and then you're pretty much done. Or you can make this bigger. You could blur the whole entire tag if you wanted to. It doesn't really look a whole lot different, but you can mess around with that. Let's go to the other tag. I'm going to hit H for hand, and it just scoots around. You could use this little bar down here to scoot back and forth, but the hand, I think, is really convenient. I'm going to hit B for brush again, so it turns into that circle, and then I just brush in what I want blurred, just like this. Hit H for hand. Let's go to the next girl. Hit B for brush, and then you can just do like that. So that might be all you need. To see the whole entire picture, I hit Control 0, and I can see the whole entire picture. So now they're blurred. So now you can still see they have a name tag, but they are blurred out. Let me show you another way that you might like a little bit better. Instead of blurring it, what if we make it all white? I'll show you how you can do that. There's a bunch of ways you could do it, but here's one way that's very similar to what we just finished doing. I'm going to go back to my original photo. So I'm going to go to the history. See, these are all the things that I've done so far. That's all the times that I hit the brush tool and I did all this stuff to it. I'm going to go back to the original photo. There it is. There, and I go to layers. See, I don't have all those layers now. So I'm back to my original photo. So let's do this one more time. But instead of putting that blurred layer, I'm going to put just a pure white layer. And I'll show you how to do that. So I'm going to make a new layer. So I hit Control J. That makes a new layer. What it did, it just copied that first one. Okay, so again, if I hit selection tool, see, it's just the same picture, one's on top of the other. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this picture, I'm going to make it all white. If you come down here, just make sure that that is all white. If it's not, you can click on it so you can change it to all kinds of different colors. See how it changed to that? But that's not going to, you don't really want that. So I'm going to hit Control Z. Well, it didn't, Control Z didn't work for that, but I'm going to go all the way up to the top left. That's pure white. I hit OK. So what I'm going to do now, in order to make the whole entire picture white, I hit the Alt key and then I hit the backspace. I don't know why it's backspace, but it is. So I hit Alt, hold it, hit backspace, and it turns everything white, pure white. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to put that invisibility mask on here. We do that by clicking Alt and then coming down here and clicking this layer mask. Let me hover over it for a second. Maybe because I got the Alt key pressed down. I'll let go of the Alt. There we go. See, add layer mask. But I'm going to hit Alt, then hit add layer mask. And then I got back to my regular picture. But what happens is, see, this is an invisibility mask. This is really what's behind that invisibility. So how do I get rid of the invisibility part? Okay, I use the brush key. So I'm going to zoom up again. So I hit Z for zoom, click here, H for hand, move it over, and then I'm going to hit B for brush. Now what happens? Look, now it's all white instead of blurred because I made that top layer right here, I made it white instead of a blurred layer. And now you can do that. If you want, you can make that whole entire tag white. Looks pretty nice. Now let me show you something that's kind of cool. Let's say we try to dip into this corner, but then it goes outside. And you're like, oh man, I don't want that. Well, the way that you can get rid of that is by going over here. Instead of the white on top, we're going to do the black on top. So I hit the letter X. It switches so it makes the X the black on top. And now watch what happens. Check it out. See, now it gets rid of my little mistake. So you can kind of clean this up a little bit if you wanted to. So that's kind of cool. So maybe you just want a blank white name tag. See that little corner right there? We didn't quite get it. So I'll tell you what, let me zoom up a little bit. Control plus zooms up. So I'm going to hit the left bracket to make that a little smaller. And if we want to, oops, I got to hit X to make sure the white's on top for this to work. And so watch, now I can you just got to be kind of careful. Try to paint inside the box. But again, if you come outside the box and you mess up, like, oh, I can fix that. I hit X, and then the black is on top now, and I can just paint around the corners right here. See how it's a little bit blurry from that white? So I can kind of, I'm being a little bit picky, but sometimes that's how I am. All right, so we've made that pretty nice. Um, let's see the whole thing, Control 0. Now she's got a white tag, but they don't, so let's get those guys. So I hit Z for zoom to zoom into her, H for hand, just kind of center it up, B for brush. Make sure this is white on top, not black. So I hit X to switch them back and forth. Let's make my brush a little bit bigger by hitting the right bracket key, and now I can just make all this white, and you can do it however you want. If you just want to do a little bit, or if you want to do the whole card from getting around the corners, make my brush a little bit smaller by hitting the left bracket key, and we're almost there. And I think if you just do this a handful of times, you'll really get used to it. I just learned how to do this tonight by watching a YouTube video. I just hit H for hand and scooch it over here. I put B for brush, make it a little bit bigger, and then I can brush all this so we don't see any of that information. Once you get around the edges, hit the left bracket key just to make it a little bit smaller so that I can get a little bit more detailed with the brush. So that looks pretty decent. If I wanted to, I could even write inside of here if I wanted to. I'm not going to. I've done all three of them. I hit Control 0, and now you've got the three girls and nobody knows their name because you've whited them out. All right, well, I hope that helps. I know it can be confusing, especially if you haven't used Photoshop before, but it's a good way to get your feet wet in Photoshop and learn how to do at least one thing in Photoshop. Maybe I'll do some more of these if you have any questions on how to do something in particular, if you thought this was helpful. All right, I'll stop talking and we'll see you later.